Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Cassie Clark, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am the engagement coordinator for Oregon Housing and Community Services. And I will be facilitating today's Agriculture Workforce Housing Facilitation Team meeting. Public Affairs is now co-facilitating this call with all of you, along with our affordable rental housing partners. And Claudia Cantu and I have had the privilege this past couple of months to connect with many of you. We still want to connect with a few others as well, but we're super glad that you've joined us today to have this conversation. And then to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, hopefully successfully. And Jill, if you could give me a nod if I've done it, that'd be great. Thank you. And so I just wanted to start with some of our Center for Equity and Inclusion process agreements that we use here internally at OHCS, and ask that you practice these with us today when sharing feedback and having a great dialogue, which I really hope that we do today. But we want to help foster an inclusive environment by what we say. We hope that you stay engaged, that you speak your truth responsibly and listen to understand, and all of us be willing to do things maybe a little bit differently, experiencing that discomfort, and expect and accept non-closure for some of these important items, obviously, that will take some time for us to work on together. So today we are here to, kind of kick off again this ag workforce group that has been meeting for quite some time. And so, you all are not new to each other, but we might have some new faces joining us again. And so just thought it'd be really great that we go around and do some welcome and introductions. And I want to hear if you wouldn't mind telling us of some recent housing success stories that you want to share, either for you personally or your organization. Then we're going to have Jill Reese present for us on the USDA on-farm funding. And then we've got several of our subject matter experts here with us today from OHCS to talk about the Oregon Centralized Application, and we fondly call it ORCA, and talk about our new technical advisors and some of the culturally specific set-asides, the ag workforce housing tax credit, and the grant funding opportunity for nonprofits. And then Annabelle, my teammate, is going to talk about our agency request budget update. This is in addition to the agenda since I sent it out. Was requested that we add some information about the engagement we've done around that. And then I'll give you a brief update on some of the engagement we've done with this group, and then an open discussion on farm worker issues for all of you to share, and then talking about our next meeting and what we want to talk about then. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, I see I need to let some more people in. And I'm going to stop sharing. And I probably might call on people to introduce themselves, if you wouldn't mind, maybe even coming on camera and letting us know who you represent and a success story you want to share. I want to start though. I'm going to take the success story that I'm most excited about is our new ORCA process. And so I just get that out of the way for everybody, but super excited that we have people here to share about this great new opportunity for Oregon. And I'm just really proud of all the hard work that's been put into it to make it easier for everyone to access our funding. So it's really great. So next on my screen, I'm just going to turn it over to Jill to quickly introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jill Reese. I'm the Deputy State Director for USDA Rural Development here in Oregon. I've been with USDA for almost 25 years. Boy, it goes fast. And really work on developing partnerships and doing program outreach, coordinating with tribes, and kind of escalating our Oregon needs and concerns with our national office. So I'm happy to be here with you today. And I'm most excited that we are getting to hire interns. So if you know anybody who wants to possibly look for a career in federal service, please let me know. Send them my way. We're looking for current college students to work our housing program.
Yeah, that's super great. I'm just going to pick next on my screen. I see Mike McNally.
Hi, I'm Mike with the Willamette Valley Wine Foundation. I guess I've experienced two successes. One is with Jill's organization. We work with community home builders, and they just recently opened up 12 new homes with the mutual self-help program with Jill's team. And then secondly, with Martin Jarvis, we've been working with the Stratus project in McMinnville, and they've successfully been able to obtain a few agricultural housing work tax credits under that program. So thank you for both of those.
Great success. Next on my screen is Jeff Stone.
Good morning, everybody. Jeff Stone. I serve as the executive director of the Oregon Association of Nurseries. I'll leave it to Mike Doak about all the successes in this space, but I will say that both Mike and I met with Governor Kotek 2 days ago, and ag labor housing is something that she is paying very much close attention to, so we should be all heartened by that.
That's great news. All right, and it's Christo.
Yeah, so my name is Krista Jimenez. I work with the Boley Bureau of Labor Fair Housing department here. I am the outreach and training specialist, and a success story is, I guess, so we're fairly new with the housing, and we're really wanting to get more into the agricultural housing aspect of everything. So I guess a success story would be the fact that they opened this outreach and training position, so that way we can be more involved in it and have the time to coordinate and do more with agricultural housing.
It's great, glad to have you here. Nathan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan Teskey, Executive Director of Genestar, a community-based affordable housing group focusing primarily on Washington County. We have a number of USDA projects and a couple of the state ag workforce tax credit projects as well in our portfolio. Glad to be here.
Thanks for being here. Do you have a success story? Did I hear us? Well, I guess it's just your portfolio is a success, so we can leave it at that unless you wanted to call something else.
Well, a recent thing is not a farm worker per se, but we recently had a grand opening for Nova Esperanza in the city of Hillsborough, 150 units Metrobond. There are at least some farm workers living there, so that's the connection here. It's really beautiful. If you're ever out in Hillsborough, let me know. Happy to give you a tour. Thanks.
Great. Martin.
Howdy, all. Martin Jarvis, State Tax Credits Program Analyst. It was a recent success. We just started the soft launch of the ORCA, and I just did my first impact assessment review, and it went okay. So I'm feeling optimistic.
That's great news. And I saw another Martin pop on the screen. So if you want to go ahead, sorry, I should have used last names.
Hi, Martin Campos Davis with the Oregon Human Development Corporation, and we support farm workers across the state with workforce and housing services, and we're just happy to continue to keep farm workers in their homes and collaborate with partners across the state to see the expansion of farm worker housing.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Kate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kate Allen. I am the Technical Advisor Team Manager. We are a new group at Oregon Housing and Community Services that have launched along with the new application process, and you'll meet at least one of my other team members along the way here. We look forward to working with you.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. I'll go ahead and kick it over to Claudia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claudia Cantu. I am one of the technical advisors working side by side with Kate. Success story. Yes, I agree with Nathan. Beautiful property out there at the grand opening, and more to come this summer. So I'm looking forward to attending more of those.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. Thanks, Claudia, for being here. I'm just going to finish with the other two OHCS staff here. So I've got Annabelle. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. Annabelle Hernandez Mejia, she, they pronouns, and I am the community engagement specialist here. I would say happy with the weather, because with that is definitely good advancement in being able to build. I know that the weather sometimes puts stringe on building capabilities and such. So like Claudia said, let's celebrate some more builds and successes out there. And I'll pass it on to Dele, who's also our teammate here.
Good morning, everyone. Dele Oyemaja, Assistant Director of Strategic Engagement. Good to be with you all this morning. I think success story would be, for me, we recently concluded our agency request budget, which was very successful, one of its kind. So we're really happy about all that. Good to see you all. Thanks.
Thanks, Dele, and thanks for the note to let people in the waiting room. I think it's Benita is the next one on my screen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Benita Picasso, pronouns she, her, ella. I am the new Migrant Seasonal Farm Worker Outreach Manager for the Oregon Employment Department. I oversee, we have reps throughout the entire state, so where we are conducting outreach at the working, living, and gathering places of the migrant seasonal farm workers. We provide resource connections. I guess my success story is actually communicating with you, connecting with you, and being involved in this part of the fabulous work that is being done out there. So I'm excited to get to know more about you, everyone here, and look forward to future collaborations.
Thanks for being here. We're excited to have you. Okay, next on my screen is Mike Doak.
Hi, I'm Mike Doak, the Executive Director of Columbia Gorge Fruit Growers up here in Hood River and Wasco counties, the tree fruit growers, pear, cherries, and apples. Our success story is every day we have 5,200 registered labor beds up in our two counties, by far the largest in the state. More than 2/3 of the bedding is occupied housing is located up here, although we're often quite ignored in the state's agriculture, labor, housing issues. But our growers every day provide housing, often year-round, for workers.
Great, thanks, Mike, for being here. And then next on my screen is Meg. Well, I will come back to Meg, and I will switch over to the next is Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Rogers with CASA of Oregon, she, her pronouns. And I would say our success stories were about 65% complete with a 34-unit farm worker housing project in Medford that is totally funded by the state this time. So thank you all.
That's exciting. Thanks for being here, Lisa. So Fernando.
Okay, good morning, folks. I'm Fernando Gutierrez. I'm the state monitor advocate for the state of Oregon, and I oversee and sustain outreach activities to farm workers in the state and report to the Department of Labor on how Oregon is doing on serving MSFWs throughout the state. And I believe that one of my interests, not sure if it's a success or not, but there's been a lot of labor camps over the years that have been put up. Some of them have been built back in the 60s. And recently, one of those labor camps in Washington County got demolished or replaced. And so there's a new farm worker housing coming into place, replacing the really old housing units that have been there for years and years.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And thanks for being here. Sunny is next.
Good morning. I'm Sunny Summers. I'm a senior policy advisor with the Oregon Department of Agriculture. I'm only here through 10:30 today, but I was able to at least get my schedule moved around and look forward to future meetings with folks.
Thanks for being here, Sunny. Okay, it's my screen's jumping around. So, and the next, I believe it is Carmen.
Evening, everybody. I'm Carmen Fernandez. I'm the Housing Development Manager with Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation, and we've had a few successes. We recently received a reservation letter for the 9% tax credit for our Albany property, which was extremely exciting. We're eager to get started there. That's an additional 54 units to our portfolio. And then I'm sorry, Margarita, I'm stealing all the glory here. We also have Margarita here with FHDC today. We purchased a property in Salem adjacent to our existing farm worker property there, Colonia Libertad. So we plan on expanding that with an additional 44 units as well. Thank you.
Such great news. Thanks for being here, Carmen. And I'll try Meg Margarita again if you can come off mute.
Hello, I'm Margarita Flores Bautista, and I'm working with FHDC as the housing specialist. And it's, I guess, a success story other than what Carmen has shared. I finalized my first year with FHDC, so I'm looking forward to the future projects we have planned.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Sarah Rue.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry, my video says it cannot function right now. Anyway, my name is Sarah with Oregon OSHA. I'm our technical specialist over ag, labor, housing. I would say a success story for us has been seeing an increased number of participants and voices, or participants and people participating in this discussion about ag, labor, housing. Good to be here today.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Sarah. It's a great conversation. So, and next on my screen is Peter.
Good morning, everyone. Peter Hainley with CASA of Oregon. Good to see all of the state agency folks and all of the farmers and farmer reps and all my fellow colleagues at the nonprofit. We've had a couple successes. One, Lisa mentioned one. Another one in Southern Oregon is the rebuild of Talent Mobile Estates that was burned in the fire that will be housing a number of farm workers who will actually be homeowners again once we get them back into their homes. So that's really exciting. The other exciting thing is we are just on the verge of awarding $90,000 in college or trade school scholarships to sons and daughters and farm workers or former farm workers. So we're really excited to be putting some scholarship dollars out in the hands of those families. Thank you. Good to see everybody.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, next on my screen is Michael. Michael Sterner. Give you a second to get off mute. We can circle back. Is it Lori?
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, it took me a moment to get off mute. My name's Lori Hafer, and I'm with Legal Aid Services of Oregon in the Farm Worker Program. And I would say, you know, our kind of direct services involve success of helping people obtain owed wages and resolve claims they have. But I also am thinking of just kind of the bigger picture of successes of helping workers understand some of the new protections that apply to farm workers, including kind of the right to refuse dangerous work, you know, the right to overtime, which will reach one more level of improvement starting in 2025. And now we have some strengthened H-2A protections for workers working under H-2A job contracts. So it's been great to work with workers and helping to know how to exercise their rights in these new areas. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Lori. Next, I see Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm not on video, headed to the Capitol for legislative days. Lauren Kenzie, Director of Government and Political Affairs for Oregon Farm Bureau Federation. I was a few minutes late, but I will just say that being somewhat new to the ag space, I'm really proud that we're representing 6,600 farmers and ranchers, family farmers, and I think a strong testament to the relationships they have with the workers who choose to come back every year and work with them. Really proud to hear those stories.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So great you're here en route, so we appreciate it. And I have a couple more. So Ubaldo.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ubaldo Hernandez, and I'm Director in Comunidades, a Latino lead organization on the Gorge. And I'm here with my community partner, Felipe Rayo. We are going to be getting this information to spread out with the community. And yeah, I got here a few minutes late, so I'm just going to say that our organization is focused on helping our Latino community to organize and advocate for themselves to overcome social and environmental injustices that happen in our communities. Housing is one of the biggest issues from what we heard from farm workers that we work with. And I think this is something that we want to get informed and be ready to help our community to protect their rights and advocate for themselves. So thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. So I have Sylvia.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I had some technical issues. Good morning. Sorry, what was the question again?
We're just introducing ourselves, saying which organization you're with, and a success story that you want to share about housing or something else.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Silvia Munoz. I work for Oregon Human Development Corporation in the Gresham office. We're a statewide organization. A success, I would say, would be, for a housing program and our workforce program, we're constantly having success stories of clients either going into housing or having stabilized housing. So I think for OHTC, a good success would be just knowing that at the end of the day, we are securing those farm worker families into secure housing.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. I'll give Michael one more shot at coming off mute and saying hello. And I think that's everybody. If I've missed somebody, please don't be shy and either come on camera or come off mute and introduce yourself and say hello to the group. But really, I'm excited to see everybody here. I'm excited for some great dialogue about resources and opportunities that are available for farm workers. And then for this group to really work together to look forward as to what we would like to tackle as a group and discuss amongst each other and maybe even put forward as a concept later. So wanting really to have an engaged conversation with all of you about these important topics. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jill. She's going to present for us first.
Hi, everybody. Am I back on screen? Okay. I'm going to put my information and program links in the chat for you all to reference. Like I said, I'm the Deputy State Director for USDA Rural Development here in Oregon. Among many other programs, we administer a suite of multifamily housing programs, including farm worker housing for off-farm and on-farm. A little bit of a caveat to that is that several years ago, we used to manage our multifamily housing programs at the state level. We had a reorganization, and now those programs are only administered nationally. So now we have a little bit of a disconnect between our local customers and communicating with the multifamily housing folks who they would be working with. we're trying to work through those issues right now. We have had a change in leadership, and I'm working to elevate questions and concerns moving forward. And I know, Cassie, you mentioned that, you know, you were hopeful that we would have a principal out here to meet with folks for a listening session. And we are working on making that happen eventually. I can't announce that, but we do want to hear from folks what we could do better within our current structure. What I wanted to present to you today is our on-farm farm worker housing loan program. This is a program that we have never used in Oregon before. We could not collateralize a loan with our current agricultural land restrictions. But we did some work with our legal department, and this year now we have figured out how to do that and maintain compliance with our land use laws. So wanted to get the word out because we have had a lot of inquiries about on-farm housing over the years. Let me just explain. On-farm housing for us is housing that is owned by the agricultural producer, that is on the farm or on land that the farmer owns. The only folks who can live in the housing are those farm workers, not family members, and not farm workers from another operation. So it's very specific. And like some of the state programs, the housing, even if it's seasonal, it cannot be used for anything else off season. So there are some challenges, and we adhere to a lot of the same standards as the state. But the program is a loan, a direct loan from USDA. It is at 1% for 30 years. And so it's a pretty good deal. It's not a grant, but it's as close as you can get in the lending world. There are some considerations. I think probably most of you know that, you know, when you work through a federal program, there are certain requirements, you know, whether you have to work through Section 106 or NEPA and meet our requirements. It's not for everybody. So what we did is on May 14th, we had a webinar to really dig in to the on-farm housing program and kind of get all that out there so people could self-select and see, am I really interested in pursuing this further? Those slides are online, and I put the link to that in the chat. Now, the process is that folks who review the webinar and they're still interested, they then request a consultation meeting with our multifamily housing national staff to talk about their project in more detail. So they can take that next step of deciding, is this right for me and my operation? Is this the right product, or do I want to look at something else? They're holding those meetings now. So if there are folks, and right now I think we only have 5 from Oregon producers set up. Nationwide, we have, I think about 11 interested parties in the on-farm farm worker housing. We have $5 million in the program for this fiscal year, which is not a lot. So they're going to fund on a first come, first served basis. So whoever gets a complete application in first, and then the rest would be held until we get our fiscal year 25 funding. Based on the response from this year, they may consider putting more money into the program next year. It has been an underutilized program nationwide. And, you know, we see a lot of potential. So we really want to kind of get a few through the pipeline this year, see how it works, get the feedback to our national office before next year's sign up is announced, see what we can do within our regulations to improve the process. And roll it back out again. So keep in mind, you'll have more than one bite at the apple. This will be a year after year program. I expect the funds will be taken up pretty quickly since it's $5 million. But again, I think this is a great way to roll this out and get us comfortable with the program, figure out who's a good fit, and get working toward, you know, what are some goals for next year. I also wanted to mention that we have off-farm housing loans and grants. There's a lot more money in that program. Many of you have worked through that program. currently, we don't have any applications or projects in process for Oregon right now. But that program does get funded every year. In the past, we've done loan grant packages that leverage other resources, and typically do some fairly sizable grants. Again, if that is a program that you want to have some more feedback in, I encourage you to stay in touch with me, because I do want to improve the engagement of our multi-housing family folks, and our Oregon customers, knowing that, you know, there has been a drop off in activity in those programs since we reorganized. And we want to get over that because this is a priority for Oregon for rural development, especially in this housing environment. So with that, I think I'm going to open it to questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jill. Does anyone have any questions about this? It's great, exciting to be able to take advantage of it.
Hi, Carmen. You're on mute.
Yep, sorry, realized that after I was already speaking. Quick question for you, Jill. We met with an analyst on the 514 program, and we were told it was biennial. Is that correct, or is that moving to annual?
All of our programs are funded on an annual basis. Who do you know? Remember who you were talking to?
No, but I can find that information and send it to you because that was one of our concerns. I wasn't prepared to put in a funding application this year, but urgency isn't there. It will be in the next.
Yeah.
So it's in a between stage, and I was trying to gauge how best to approach this.
So typically we get funding every fiscal year that we put into the programs. We have had some times when we've held our NOFAs and kind of rolled the money into a single application because they were revising the programs, and that has happened before. So that may be what's going on right now. They may be saying that, you know, next year's is expected to be delayed because they're making improvements, but don't quote me on that. I'm just speculating.
It was Jonathan Bell that we met with.
Okay.
And it was for the NOSA program that's open now.
Okay, for 514.
Yeah, it closes, I believe it closes June 15th. And again, I didn't have the capacity to go to work on an application, but 2026 is really far away still. So we were trying to gauge whether or not the urgency was there, and I can't justify spending $5,000 on putting together an application at this stage because it's the properties doesn't have the urgency need according to the CNA that we have.
Okay, let's talk offline, Carmen, and maybe we can do some strategizing behind the scenes.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Jill, thanks. A couple of quick things. Certainly we would love to take advantage of perhaps going through the webinar with you, with our growers. I mean, certainly the nursery industry is looking at this space more and more. I mean, it is complicated with the land use considerations that present to us. We're both urban and rural, so it does complicate things a wee bit. But I think the conversation is worth having. The one thing the question I have will pose my ignorance, so I beg your forgiveness. So in the housing, you said it couldn't be multiple workers from different farms. That might be geographical. Does it also exclude family members?
Yes. And we're talking the on-farm program only. So the on-farm that is owned by the agricultural producer, you cannot house the producer's family, but they can house the people who work on their operation, not people who work on other operations, and their families. So as long as somebody in that household is working on that operation, those folks can live in that unit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think that's a more perfected way to ask my question was that if I work for Reese Farms, can my wife live with me in that housing?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And children, as well. We actually even allow disabled and retired farm workers to qualify as that eligible ag worker for our programs. Great. Any other questions?
Lori, your hand has gone down. I don't know if you.
I was also asking for clarification about families, but I'm very glad to hear that the families of workers can be housed as well.
Yes, yes. And I should also mention that we are working right now to come up with some additional designs that'll be approved for our programs. I can't really say a lot about it right now, but there are some folks working on having some just available off-the-shelf designs for like single family or dorm unit kind of bunkhouses for farm worker housing that are, you know, easily accessible and, you know, kind of pre-approved to go. So that is something that's in the pipeline as well.
Also great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when that gets a little bit more baked, maybe we can have you back to chat about that. And we'd love to have somebody, you know, sit in regularly with us on these calls as well. And maybe we can talk about, like you said, a potential future visit with your leadership. Any other questions while Jill has the floor? Just really appreciate you being here, Jill.
Sure. And I think if you guys have any like specific events when it would make sense for us to bring our multifamily housing leadership out to talk to folks where you'll have a critical mass, I think that's something that we could try to make happen. So I'm open to that conversation too.
Great. Well, I think we'll be talking about maybe some next steps later on in the agenda too. So maybe we can just remember to tie those things together because that would be really exciting. Jill was great to put her contact information in the chat along with those resources that she mentioned. So just reference there if you need to either reach out to her or more info on those projects. And so I think I'll go ahead now, if there's no more questions for Jill, to turn it over to our OHCS team and have Kate Allen kick us off.
Thank you. Thanks. And I appreciate learning a whole bunch of things that I had not previously known from Jill's presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Am I able to do that, Cassie?
I hope so. I made you a co-host. Let's see if I did it right, Kate.
Excellent. So
it's a true test of my skills.
Well, and it is always for all of us on the technology, right?
There should be a share screen, and if not, maybe you can request it.
All righty. There it is.
Yay.
Thanks so much. And I see your nod, so I must be sharing what I hoped I'm sharing.
Perfect.
Good. So you met two of our team this morning, myself and Claudia Cantu. We have two other team members for the technical advisors team, Angelica Martinez and Tanya Stagre. Both of those individuals, along with Claudia and myself, come to our roles as having worked in and around affordable housing development for a long time. So what we're talking with you about today are resources that are available through the Affordable Rental Housing, or the ARH division of Oregon Housing and Community Services. Our colleague Martin will talk a little bit more in depth about the agricultural worker housing tax credit. We're going to kind of give a quick overview of who we are, what we do, how you'll know how to get a hold of us, and this new process for folks who may not have seen it yet. So, as I mentioned, we are focused on affordable rental housing. Technical advisors basically assist our development partners to navigate the new process, assist them in accessing other affordable housing resources or other resources available through the ARH process, including pre-development loans for development of rental housing, capacity building grants for qualifying organizations, land acquisition loans, and other kinds of directions that we can help point folks in. The best part of our work, I think most of us would say, is that we are a relatively new, or for some, a refreshed function at Oregon Housing of really being the primary relationship managers with our development partners, sort of recognizing that we all do better when we are in a collaborative partnership to get housing developed. And we feel privileged to, you will work through the process, you'll work with subject matter experts around the particular funding for the project that you're creating. We kind of are the overarching, we can get you to where you need to go if there are questions about development of rental housing. Our technical advisor email address is there. My colleague can drop it into the chat as well for folks. So the new Oregon centralized application process, and some folks on the call are familiar with this. We're going to do a real high level. It basically deconstructs what had been a NOFA, time-bound, competitive, and sort of siloed process for allocating resources. And we're now thinking about it much more as a pipeline into which you put the projects at basically whatever stage. So we've encouraged our partners to say, if there are development concepts, if there's housing you know you need to develop for the communities you're serving, let us know at the intake stage. It's a very simple sort of smart sheet based inquiry that says, tell us what you know about a project. It may be a concept, it may be basically shovel ready, as we say. Anything that you are thinking you could use Oregon Housing and Community Services funding for comes in through this intake step. If it's a project that is basically ready to go with the resources that we currently have available, and I'll show a resources chart in just a minute, it would go through a process called the impact assessment. That's really, is exactly what it says. The shift in our process emphasizes what is the difference that this project can make in the communities that you serve. So certainly things like, do you have site control? What's the environmental condition? But importantly, who is the community or the housing need that is being served? What are the additional services you might be bringing in that are appropriate to that group? What is the size and the sort of concept for that housing that meets those needs? You're looking at things for any particular population that you serve, for identified housing needs within the communities that you're working in, and then aware of the priorities in the state housing plan, which is our kind of overarching goals document. Once you have completed the steps of impact assessment, our leadership body, the Housing Stability Council, has an opportunity to hear about those projects. And this has been really important in this process for them. Often they were hearing about a project when it was really down the road and we had made pretty firm commitments for resources and so on. We've moved their review of projects up because they're most interested in the impact that the project will make. Once Housing Stability Council has reviewed and approved that project, a developer will receive a letter of intent, which is essentially a conditional reservation of funds, and then a deeper dive into the financial eligibility, what sources of funding are going to be used, what are your other sources of funding that will come in, local funds or other resources, debt resources as well, all get confirmed during the financial eligibility step. At the end of that step, with completion there, you would receive a firm commitment. And at that time, we would commit to each other that we would be ready to close that financial transaction within 6 months. So a lot of steps along the way intend to meet the governor's executive orders around housing production. So we knew we needed to smooth out our system a bit to accomplish that, and really appreciate our partners' help in shaping this over the last almost year of process to do so. Wanted to quickly review our resource offerings. We have a little over $500 million this year, and that is notably without access to either 4% tax credits and private activity bonds or 9% tax credits. This is just a timing issue, and those resources will come back into our pipeline of funds when we in the next year in 2025. As I said, Martin will talk a little bit more about the agricultural worker housing tax credit and be able to answer other tax credit and resource questions for us. Wanted to talk just real briefly about two sources that appear on the second page: the capacity building funds, which are aimed at organizations who are providing the housing that many of you all are. Those resources are limited availability for nonprofit affordable housing developers, housing authorities, and tribal housing organizations. Additionally, available through the ORCA process is the land acquisition program and pre-development funding. And if there are questions about those, we can answer those as we shift. Wanted to just briefly touch on set-asides. So two slices of that. One is the geographic set-aside. What we're looking at here is the analysis that was done through the Oregon Housing Needs Analysis, both of underproduction and housing burdened BIPOC households. So the weighting of those yields the geographic set-asides. And then the second slice of set-aside has to do with the organization who is developing. And this is basically to assure that the priorities within our state housing plan for development that meets the needs of communities of color, tribal housing needs, and nonprofit in rural communities all have kind of a cushion at the bottom of our resource stack to assure that whenever through the process those projects come in, we can feel reasonably sure that resources will be there for those projects. This is a list of different places to go for best information. We will put a link both to our advisor email and the new great ORCA webpage into the chat, and then we can answer any more questions about that. And I'm going to stop sharing and come back on screen and see if we can pause, and if there are questions about anything I shared there, we can answer those, and then I can turn it over to Martin. And Martin, you can tell me if you want any of those slides back up.
Howdy all. Nope, that was excellent. Those are excellent slides. Let's see, I think the most important thing for you from my perspective is the amount that's set aside specifically for agriculture workforce housing. That's the 10 million in community-based grant fund and the 12 or so million in tax credits we have available. Those will go out through the ORCA process, of course. One thing of note, we have some of the 10 million in grant funds is set aside specifically for pre-development costs as grants. So basically, if you are interested in applying for any of that pre-development grant funding, it'll be through the same process as applying for the pre-development loans. It's just that if you are an agricultural a nonprofit that developed housing for agricultural workers, basically just indicate that in the application for the loan fund, and we'll switch out the loan for the grant instead. And then, of course, if you are applying for tax credits or the grant funds to build housing, that will be through the ORCA process, and I will be the primary reviewer in the impact assessment stage to make sure the projects conform to our program requirements. And I am happy to answer any questions about any of this.
Martin, maybe if you could just give a little bit more information, this is Lori, on just what are the things to meet the requirements and if there's any other kind of criteria you're applying in assessing the impact.
Oh, of course. So 1 second. We have, I don't know, have we actually released the pre-development? No, that's coming later. So so basically, we decided through conversations with you and other partners that at least some of the $10 million that the legislature gave us in community-based agricultural workforce housing grants should be used for pre-development costs for these organizations, for your organizations, to help you develop more housing. Basically, if you are a registered nonprofit that has been working in this field, building agricultural housing, and you apply for this fund, you will most likely get it. You've already met all of the requirements, really, and we know through long partnerships that you already do this work and that you're good at it, and we want to help you be successful at it. So basically, all of the requirements in the application materials will just be to document that proof and make sure that we cover our legal bases.
Thanks for the question, Lori. Are there any other questions for either Martin or Kate? And as Kate mentioned earlier, Claudia is part of this great technical advisor pipeline team. And I know many of you have worked with Claudia in the past as well. So she's a great resource as well. Well, in case you start getting down the road in your applications and need a little bit more assistance, please do feel free to reach out to this incredible team. That's exactly what they're there for. And so, yeah, I encourage you to reach out if you need more information. Thank you both for presenting. It's exciting to get going. I know you are most excited of all. So thank you again for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my, oh, okay. I thought you were actually raising your hand, Kate, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. So hopefully I do it right. So I hope you can see the agenda. Please shout out to me if you cannot. But next on the agenda is my colleague, Annabelle, is going to give us a quick update on the agency request budget process and the engagement that we have done to date. So I'll go ahead and advance to the next slide and turn it over to Annabelle.
Hey, thanks, Cassie. And hi, everyone. Annabelle Hernandez Mejia again. So we're nearing the end of the agency request budget process. You may have noticed that the process was a bit different from previous years. And that was mostly because we purposely developed the plan to align with the governor's priorities, which, as listed here, housing, health, including behavioral health, as well as education. Within the housing, priorities were given to maintain ground on any of the progresses that have been made in this last biennium, improve and expand priority programs and also address gaps. So new programs that address gaps in any of the current programs as well. So you can switch to the next slide. As far as engagement went through the process, we had a total of 6 town halls. These were based on topic or focus, except for the Spanish and tribal town halls that were held. And these pretty much span the entire gambit from shelter to ARH and also homeownership on their topics. We also have sent out 3 surveys. I do want to say that the one for preservation and PSH, permanent supportive housing, have closed, but that homeownership one and shelter will remain open until June 3rd. The last item you see there in that slide for the budget analysis tool was a big ask, and I don't believe anyone in this room was asked with that. So honestly, you should appreciate it. It was a lot of work that I know was put in from our partners to fill this thing out. And lastly, I just want to add that council will be here having a presentation on the 7th. So if you're interested in hearing more than just this quick recap, you're definitely welcome to also attend that next council meeting. And I do want to say that all of the feedback, well, thank you to everyone that's participated on here. I know I've seen some of the faces at the different meetings or organizations, but all of the feedback that we have received, whether it was from idea boards or retro boards, shared content, everything will be putting together a summary as we usually do at the end of each of these. And I will assume that these will go to the or an announcement will go out to the emails that have already been receiving both announcements for the town halls and surveys, which are usually like if you haven't, just sign up for our email list and you should be receiving everything. I don't know if there's some quick questions and how much I could answer any of these, but if there is, happy to try.
Great overview, Annabelle, and your leadership on all of this work has been wonderful with the very quick turnaround time from the governor's office to implement this. And so if there's any other questions anybody has, please feel free to ask them now, or that, like Annabelle said, this will be at Housing Stability Council for a little bit more in-depth presentation if you'd like to join us next week, next Friday, for that as well. And again, I just appreciate Annabelle jumping in and giving us this high-level overview. And Annabelle's going to be joining in these conversations going forward as well with Claudia. So she's a familiar face to many of you, and I just wanted to, fully introduce her and engage her in this conversation as a resource as well. So Annabelle, I don't know if you want to put maybe your email in the inbox so that anyone can reach out to you directly as well if they want to chat about anything further. I'd appreciate it. So thanks again. And I am now sharing my screen, so it's difficult for me to see. Raise your hand if you have questions, or just come off mute and stop me, please. I don't see any chat, so I'm going to just continue forward if I can advance. And so I have had, along with Claudia, the pleasure to meet with many of you, not all of you, over the last couple of months. And for those of you that I haven't been able to schedule with, I do look forward to having that connection made. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if we haven't gotten it scheduled. We also launched a survey and had just a few responses to the survey. But the themes that I picked up from on the survey and just with all of my one-on-one meetings, which was really great. Honestly, there was a lot of candid feedback and a lot of great dialogue. Was able to hear a lot of concerns that were voiced, but really, I think the consistent theme from all the partners was that really the need to have regular meetings and stick to those meetings, and with the expectation that our state agencies and stakeholders will all be at the table. And so we are hoping to get these meetings onto a regular cadence quarterly and make them super meaningful so that we will have people at the table that can carry these conversations forward. There was a loud voice of continuing the advocacy for resources and policies to better serve farm workers. and farm worker housing. And so that is exactly what the intention of this group is. And so I, look to all of you to help shape this conversation going forward. And then really asking OHCS to have interagency collaboration with our other partners who are at the table. And we look forward to doing that. And you can see we've got a lot of agency partners here today who are eagerly excited to also interested to have this conversation with us and all of you. And so some of the themes of the topics, so this is a suggestion for maybe the next quarterly meeting, which we're looking to for September, but hasn't been finalized. So we'll get that date out to everybody. But potential topics could be, and I think Sunny did have to drop off, but I think Sarah might still be here, but potentially an OSHA rule update, kind of some ongoing compliance, and then the ODA on farm funding opportunities, and then showcasing some success stories. I look to all of you to chime in with me on some potential topics that we could have. Again, these were just kind of some next steps. And then I just wanted to share with you the great ideas that were shared with me. And again, this is just some of them. I tried to take very clear notes though, but just some because I haven't been able to meet with everybody just yet. So really looking to you all to help us shape these future discussions. We're already in the works. We had a good conversation yesterday with our internal teams about creating a dashboard for the distribution of the OHCS resources that have supported ag worker housing. So that is in the works. But then also there's just these other conversations, and I'm just putting it out there now to have you start thinking about kind of where you want to see some of these conversations go. I know that we put a lot of effort from this group into the farm worker study that was recently done by OHCS, and want to just check in to see kind of what accomplishments have been made already. And then what additional policy recommendations may need to take place that we could look forward to for a future biennium, and maybe even expanding that study further. There's a strong desire from partners to get out and to see housing, and so coordinating a bus tour for OHCS staff as well as other partners. And potentially Washington County, really looking at that seasonal versus year-round housing. There's an idea of using mass timber, and then, always looking north to see how we compare. And then, some other just specific issues really of getting to kind of unregistered housing or documented versus undocumented eligibility. And then looking to our partner states for some additional best practices that we can share and maybe implement here in Oregon. I'm just going to leave it there and see if there's any reactions from any of our partners on these, or any additions they would like to make, or maybe any that we would like to elevate to maybe tackle soon or then later. Go ahead, Peter.
I've long asked for, not necessarily success stories, but celebrating the successes. And I think we can do that through this first item here, the dashboard that really shows how broadly the tax credits and other investments from OHCS and other sources have gone to build some really great housing both on and off farm. And so I think it would be good if we had a regular package that was included as part of the invitation, so that it just links up to whether it's a document you guys already have at OHCS that folks can just go directly to, rather than perhaps people having to reach out to Martin and ask for information. But things like that I think would be really helpful for folks to understand what's been accomplished in the last 25 years since the establishment of some of these important funding sources.
Thanks for that additional feedback, Peter. Any other reactions from anybody? I will put a link to the study in the chat if I can get my fingertips on it pretty quickly. Oh, probably not. I'll stop sharing my screen maybe.
I just
Lori,
added it, Kathy.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. Yeah, I can't multitask. That's wonderful. Appreciate you. Lori, do you have a question or something to add?
I just had a couple of other thoughts, and these are things that have been, raised at different meetings. One is just, it would be interesting not just to see kind of the dashboard of OHCS resources and how they've been used to support, farm worker housing, kind of geographically on farm, off farm, kind of over the years, but also I think if there's been, kind of like maybe a 5-year check-in, looking at when resources were, how are those complexes, how are those, the labor housing that's been built doing, kind of, in terms of, the impact assessment kind of comes at the beginning, right before the application, but it'll also be interesting to kind of see what has been the impact of that housing. The other thing is that, we've talked about this, that one of the challenges is whether like in terms of having community-based housing, particularly for migrant workers, is something that's very hard kind of financially for it to pencil out, but that there's definitely a need for that, where there would be, housing provided for migrant workers in an area like, in the Dalles or Hood River, where, it would serve workers who work for many different growers, but be particularly kind of for that migrant season. And we've talked about thinking about whether we could do, a pilot project or something to have that happen, or different pilot projects or ideas for community-based housing for migrant workers.
Thanks, Lori. Peter, your hand is still up. Do you have more to say?
I do not.
Okay. You're welcome to. Okay. Well, I hope this is just the start. Again, I'm really asking each of you to be engaged with the conversation and help drive the direction of the conversation. And so look forward to Annabelle and Claudia looking into some additional conversations with individuals as well, and how we can kind of shape this conversation. And so if there's any other hot topics that anybody would like to discuss, we have 20 minutes left of our scheduled time. I know these haven't necessarily all gone an hour and a half, so I'm happy to give that time back, but I would love to hear if there's any kind of pressing concerns or anything we want to discuss today.
Yeah, this is Fernando, State Monitor Advocate. I have a question for Mr. Doak, Michael Doak, from the Dalles area. Yeah. Are you available, Michael, there?
I am.
Yeah, you made a comment that the gorge is kind of forgotten, what is it that's forgotten about you folks out there?
Oh, the reason why I said that is we've been going through a long process with Oregon OSHA regarding the agriculture labor housing rulemaking process. It's been going on for 6 years, and I'm a little bit burned by an article in the Oregonian a couple Sundays ago that was pretty biased. Didn't really capture what was going on with the whole process, and that's all it was, a little cynicism. But we met with the governor, as Jeff said earlier. We met with her on Tuesday and managed to outline our concerns, and she didn't ignore us.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because we do a lot of outreach, and we've met before out there a couple of years ago when all your growers got together, and we went out and did some presentations by our outreach staff.
The thing that really is that, sticks with me is that we have all those registered labor beds, 200 registered camps, 5,200 registered beds, with 9,000 registered beds in the whole state. Our growers, our 440 growers, are playing by the rules. They're getting their properties inspected, registered, and that just seems to be ignored in this process. The people who are playing by the rules are the people who are most affected by the proposed agriculture, labor, housing new rules that are coming out in a few weeks. We haven't seen them yet, but we're concerned, and it's been a tiring process. 6 years on a rack is a long time, and it's going to exacerbate homelessness in Wasco County. That's where 4,500 beds are registered, and if some of the numbers we've seen go through, it's going to cut those beds in half, and those folks are going to come to our area and have nowhere to sleep but in their cars. So I don't really know who's being helped. We've had great tours out here with the RAC, with the governor's staff, with other folks. We've got another one planned for next week. And our folks are playing by the rules, and they're the ones who are getting attacked.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's where that migrant housing that Lori was talking about comes in, is how do we develop housing for migrants, you know?
Well, we have it developed. We have on-farm housing. And, you know, the focus of this group is largely off-farm, community-based housing. That's pretty tough to do when you have 5,200 beds already developed and built. Where are you going to put community housing to serve all that need in our 2 counties without creating a big bureaucracy? That's something that's already being accomplished by growers, again, playing by the OSHA rules.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You bet. Not that I have a strong opinion on it or anything.
No, but thanks for sharing it, Mike. We appreciate it. I think it's great. And I think that's really where this dialogue is. We're gonna make some progress together going forward. So any other questions or comments for the good of the order today? I just really am grateful to see all of you here and interested in having this important conversation together. So we'll look to September. So kind of really focusing on a quarterly effort to make sure we get maximum attendance and engagement. So we really hope that you can make it, and we'll be in touch with agenda development going forward, and want to just keep that dialogue open and going. We can meet ad hoc. So if there is something pressing in between our next meeting, we can put together something with a hot topic agenda item. So do know that this group is for you all to have these conversations together, and we look forward to being a part of them with you. So thanks for joining us today. If there's anything further, please don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, we'll talk to you again soon. Okay. Thanks, everyone.